Hey everyone, Dan here. I wanted to take a look at some dip buying opportunities for the week ahead. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps a lot. And let's jump right in. So Airbnb has proven to be a couple of things. One is a gap filler, and the other is a channel producer. So it produces a lot of channels. Even if we look back further, I didn't sketch them out, but you can kind of see, sort of follows a channel, breaks that channel, and does some consolidation, and then begins a new channel, and then falls out of that channel, consolidates a bit, and then kicks off a new channel. So right now we're in this purple channel, and what I'll be looking for it to do in the next few days is, push itself out of this upward bound of the channel and consolidate a little bit. And if history tells us anything, you can probably expect a few days, maybe a week of consolidation, and then forming a new channel. So, the dip buying opportunity that I would see would be as soon as this leaves the channel, it starts to establish some sideways action, and that sideways action is essentially the dip buying opportunity. That's probably the riskier way to play it. If you wanted to go a little bit safer, you could wait until it started to get out of its consolidation phase, start to make some higher lows, and then as it begins to establish that channel, then take your position. But it's looking good in my opinion, so it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. DraftKings, which I've had my eye on for quite some time. I don't currently have a position, but I was trying to get a dip buy at this point, but this was way back when this was happening. Tried to get a dip buy down here, but it pushed up over it. So now I'm looking, potentially I get this original dip buy zone if DraftKings continues to dip while it's in this downward channel. But basically the same thing is what I'll be looking for in any of these that are caught in a down channel. Looking for it to leave the channel, establish some consolidation, and then start to make higher lows, which would show us a new channel forming and an upward trending channel is forming. So that's what I'm going to be looking for here. These were my ideal zones before, so it's already in my second ideal zone, but my primary ideal zone, it could easily get down to, and then maybe catch support at these price targets that we had identified before, and it could easily catch some support there, work itself sideways, and come back up. It's testing, recently tested this 60-66 mark, and if it breaks through there, it has a pretty steep drop to 57.79. So that's where it could sort of get us into this zone here. So I'll keep an eye and see what happens. XPEV, so this is not a channel, but this is a flagging out. Flagging out means previously being pushed down by making a bunch of lower highs, and then recently has started to make a series of higher lows, which could be the beginning of a new upward channel. Ignore these were from a analysis long ago, like way back when this thing was happening. We were looking for it to hold that, and it didn't, and got a bigger dip. So anyway, what we're looking at right now is for essentially the upward trending line here to hold as support. So we'd be looking for XPEV to go ahead and push itself up, essentially getting to this sort of inflection point where those two meet, and then looking for it to pop itself out and make a big move, ideally to the upside, if you're looking for a long position, but it could also pop itself out and take a dramatic down dip. So you're just going to have to see what happens when it pushes itself out of there. But oftentimes when something truly flags out, it takes a big move one way or the other, but we just don't know until the flagging out happens, and then you just have to basically chart and track the price and see if it's developing a steep uptrend or a steep downtrend. Tattoo Chef, which I don't think we've talked about here before, but I actually have a long position in Tattoo Chef, and it's been beat up quite a bit lately. What's looking interesting to me is sort of like recent bottoms here line up with previous but fairly recent bottoms here. So this is sort of a like double, triple quadruple bottom zone for it to push off of, and it's just started making a couple of higher lows, which could put us on this trend line, which would break us out of this channel, this purple down channel, and would walk us right back up and get us a foothold into the 20s again. So I'm going to be watching that. Specifically, not just a channel break like we saw in Airbnb or DraftKings, but specifically to walk itself up this white line as support as it's breaking this channel as well. That would be a really good sign of strength. Palantir. So I've done quite a few videos on Palantir, so that's why this is kind of a messy chart, but a lot of these price zones that we had previously charted in the blue and the red and the yellow are still holding up, so I'm not going to delete the old work and redo it and duplicate a bunch of work. So, but this purple channel is what we're looking at. So it's been in this down channel. I guess it kind of entered it here on March 11th and has been working itself down. Recently popped itself out of the lower half, but then pretty quickly recovered to the upper bound of the channel. And so this is more like an Airbnb play where I'm looking for it to consolidate its way out and then start to push up and see what it does at that immediate 23.33 resistance point that it'll probably meet. First thing will be to look for, though, if it pushes itself out, that it doesn't top out again right here where this like quadruple or even more topping out was just a few days ago. So if we get past there, then I'll be looking for, a good uptrend to ride. But it has already started forming. I could essentially draw on the same thing I did with Tattooed Chef, where it's started to make these higher lows. But I would be more interested to see it actually form a channel that it's going to hold to, and then we'll just draw on the full channel and not just the bottom trend line. All right, CRISPR. So CRISPR has gotten kicked around a lot. I do think that this is like a $250, $300 stock probably. Right now sitting at a 111.64. And, what I'm looking at here is basically like this recent triple quadruple bottom. That was also a price target that we had identified. This is actually our lowest price target that we had identified, 106.88. This is from when I did the video of, is CRISPR heading to 100 or to 200? And I think at that time it was in like the 130s, maybe 140. And you see it actually did get down to 100 here. So it's had a wild beat down. And so what I'm looking for it to do here essentially is break this most recent downtrend, because as you see, it tried to push up, consolidated, and now it's getting pushed back down by this trend line here. So if it can get itself into this red box, that's what I'm going to be looking for to see what happens there. But if it can work itself into this box, then I'll be looking at potentially a good dip buying opportunity, but I'll need it to show that it's starting to make a series of higher lows and truly establish an upward channel, because it's been making a bunch of sad faces, like a whole bunch of sad faces, and most recently just here. So what I'm concerned about is that it pushes itself above this trend line that's keeping it down and pushes itself out, but then just does a big sad face. So that's why I really want to see it establish its channel and not start to duplicate lows like it's doing here. Another thing that we could be looking for, there's several gaps. I mean, a bunch of these have been filled. This one, I guess technically has been filled too, so probably no immediate gaps to look for, unfortunately. But yeah, be careful with CRISPR, in my opinion, because of the sad face frequency. TKAT, so this was an NFT play that we had called out during this huge run up here, basically from mid-20s up to the mid-70s, and now is down at below 40, so 38.50. But it had essentially broken this steep downtrend that pushed it almost all the way back, and now has started to establish some higher lows, though it's a little bit like sketchy in my opinion. It's not super clean just because it is making higher lows, but it's also just kind of continuously topping out, like right around here, right around like 42, 40, mid 41s to 42, it just keeps topping out. So, in order to form an upward channel, we need higher lows and higher highs. And right now, it's just in the infancy stages of getting some higher lows, but we really need to see some higher highs and not just sort of horizontal highs, because that's just going to push it back out here and drop it down further. So keep an eye on TKAT. HOFV is coming to a flagging out position here. We should see it by pre-market tomorrow and see sort of if it's picking up on this orange bottom trend line, which is an upward trend, or if it's being pushed down further below the orange and sort of holding this white line as a resistance point. But, on the long side, what I'd be looking for is for it to have popped itself out by pre-market and be walking itself up through all of these blue resistance points, but walking itself up back to the top. PENN, which we haven't talked about before, but PENN is again, sort of in the very beginnings of developing some higher lows. And, I think it's pretty promising because it's had quite a significant beatdown. It's 142 way up here, and it got all the way down to 98.50. So that's a pretty significant drop percentage-wise. And so now you see it's starting to walk back up a little bit and has made, it's had some topping out here. So we want to make sure that as it starts to walk up, that it doesn't get stuck underneath that 110.62, essentially. We want to see it turn that into support pretty quickly. And then that would give me a lot of confidence that we are going to walk up this white line and develop ourselves a nice channel. And the nice thing is, if this does develop into a channel where the highs are right now, that leads you right up into the 130s pretty quickly. EXAS, Exact Science, we've not talked about before, but something interesting to look at. There's a frequent bottoming out zone there at 123.86, and you see it so many times, all of these, and it's getting pushed down at the moment, but it's holding that so strongly that I'm sort of hoping that the buying pressure that is experienced at that 123.86 zone sort of overcomes this white line push down and pops us out of this upward resistance point, and will then give us a channel back to the upside. So that's what I'm looking for on EXAS. So it's a little bit of a hybrid. It's a little bit of an oddball, but it does look interesting to me. It recently was much higher. It's a lot of growth stocks, right? 140 at the beginning of March, and as we know, March has been a beast, a bad beast for a bunch of these growth stocks. So, but I'd keep an eye on EXAS. It's a weird setup, but it could still prove out to be the case. The biggest thing will be, does a channel establish? If a channel establishes, then I'll feel pretty good to go. BLI, which we've not talked about before either, Berkeley Lights, has this really incredible downtrend. It's just incredible just because it's very clean. It's consistent topping and bottoming out, clearly holding the channel in the downward direction. Right now it's sitting at this 44.67. So what I'm going to be looking for it to do is to pop itself out. As we've been talking about, this green zone would be my dip buy zone. And it hasn't made sort of as many of the sad faces as CRISPR has, which is why CRISPR, I have that box red, because to me it's sort of an extra reminder of take some caution here, don't just jump in and dip buy it. With BLI, I would be a little bit more comfortable taking a quicker, aka riskier position in this if it gets into this green box, because it's held the channel so cleanly. So if it pops out, I'll feel pretty good to begin with. But then also, like I said, it hasn't made a ton of these sad faces, and I don't know if it'll end up to be a gap filler, but it definitely has gaps to fill, and be looking for it to immediately start to get itself into some of those. So that would get us back to almost 50, so mid $49. So that's what I'm looking for, BLI, but that's the last one for this video. I appreciate you all watching. Please comment below if you have thoughts or questions, or if there's tickers you'd like me to cover in future videos. I will do my best. I also spend the weekend answering the comments, so at this point, if you put a comment in there, expect an answer over next weekend. So don't ask me anything like, you know, what do you think's going to happen tomorrow? I mean, also that's just like not a good question to ask me, because that's not the type of videos that I make. You know, my answer would basically be watch the price action and see what it's happening, and update your chart and see how it's bouncing off of different zones, so on and so forth. So like, I can't answer those kinds of questions anyway, but if you do ask a different question, just know it'll likely come, I'll respond to it next weekend. So anyway, I will see you all in the next video. Good luck this week.